Welcome to the next installment of Law & Order, the video series where I look at and unpack stories from games. This video is the follow-on from my video on episode 1 of Home Sweet Home, and in this one we'll look at the story from episode 2. You can find the video for episode 1 up there, but instead of jumping straight into the plot for this game, I will do a quick recap. There'll be video chapters below, so use those if you want to skip forwards. There will be spoilers in this video, so if you're wanting to play this game at some point, then you have been warned. But that's enough of an intro. Let's get into it. In the previous episode, a man named Tim woke up after a heavy night of drinking in a building he's not familiar with. He doesn't know how he got there, but he's searching for his wife Jane, who has gone missing. He keeps transporting from his home he shares with Jane to different locations. Throughout his adventure looking for Jane, Tim encounters various entities. One is named Belle. Belle was an art student who in 1996 fell in love with a guy called Shane. Issue was that those feelings weren't reciprocated, and Shane had a girlfriend named Sherry. Belle had 2 jinxes placed upon both Shane and Cherry. Shane was subjected to a lechery jinx which made him fall in love with Belle, and Cherry was subjected to a cursed nails jinx, which would result in the victim's stomach being pierced with nails. Cherry caught wind of this and went to a novice monk, and the curse was reversed, but more aggressive and painful. Due to Belle dying from the curse, Shane, who was in love with Belle due to the lechery jinx, unsubscribed from life as he couldn't bear to be without her. The other entity is a type of ghost known in Thai mythology as a praetor, a large skulking spirit with a mouth as small as a pinhole. This was the spirit's punishment for a horrible crime. In this spirit's case, this horrible crime was committed by a man named Pichaimana Paibun, or Tay, the leader of a motorcycle gang who were committing various robberies. Tay committed a terrible crime. Alongside his gang members, he robbed and beat his own mother. The resulting police chase ended with Tay being impaled through the skull after he crashed his bike. Treating your parents with respect is a big deal in Thai culture, and Tay ended up as a praetor. Tim learns that Jane was experiencing strange visions, hauntings and dreams, so she went to a novice monk for help, and he gave her a special knife to protect herself. At the end of episode 1, it switches to Jane's perspective, and she's in a dance school being stalked by someone. This someone grabs Jane before she can fight back with the knife, and she is dragged off into the darkness. So we now lead into the plot for episode 2. Following on directly from the last episode, Tim wakes up in his home and listens to a news report about a solar eclipse. Tim blacks out and wakes up in a forest. This forest is littered with mutilated animal carcasses. Tim sees more entities and is eventually chased across a bridge, which leads to an old dance school. Tim is being pursued by a woman named Ratri, or rather her ghost, who is in traditional Thai dress and who uses mannequins to teleport around the dance school. Ratri is the woman who dragged Jane away, and Tim finds the knife that Jane dropped. After evading this dancing woman, he eventually comes to an auditorium and stage where he defeats Ratri using Jane's knife. Tim passes out and is saved by the novice monk, the same novice who helped Jane and that helped Sherry after Belle placed the cursed nails jinx on her. The novice says that Tim should return home and stop looking for Jane, that her fate is sealed. Nonetheless, Tim isn't about to give up on his wife and he spots her and chases after her. He comes across an old occultist called Chai. Tim tries to use the knife, but it doesn't work. Chai has what appears to be a massive bodyguard called the Executioner, and the Executioner attacks Tim. Tim joins the Ethan Winters Club and has 2 fingers chopped off, the knife is destroyed and the Executioner chases him, but Tim manages to escape. The novice says that he can forge a new knife for Tim, but needs specific materials. Tim retrieves the materials, a coffin nail, a broken pagoda crest, and a broken knife handle, and the new knife is forged. But this knife is more powerful, being that it's made from a different type of metal. Tim sees Jane again and follows her, but it was a setup by Chai, who tricked Tim with a doll, and he is grabbed by the Executioner. Tim gets captured and imprisoned in an underground temple. The cell next to Tim was previously inhabited by Jane. Tim breaks out of his cell and has to avoid the Executioner, who is actually blind. But as they say, when one sense diminishes, another increases. Tim temporarily stops the Executioner by using gongs which hurt the Executioner's sensitive ears, and an old cannon to stop him. Using the Executioner's absence, Tim finds Chai and stabs him in the neck with the knife, but something happens to Tim. The knife gains some sort of power, as well as Tim's arm. The Executioner turns up, but seems to turn to stone. Tim then enters into an area which seems to feature sacrifices. They may look familiar, Belle, the box cutter girl, and Pichai Manapaibun, or Tay, the motorcycle gang leader who became the Praetor. There was also Ratri and Jane. After freeing Jane, Tim is kicked over the edge by the executioner, and Tim sees Chai, who has fused himself into the executioner's body and is attempting to open some sort of portal. Tim defeats Chai again and goes to Jane, but she dies. He flees the collapsing temple and is chased by a huge version of Chai's head. The novice helps him escape Chai's pursuit, and Tim wakes up back at home again. The phone rings and it's Tim's best friend, Ju. Tim accepts Ju's offer to go to his place, and then Tim holds up his arm and reveals that his arm still retains the power he gained back in the temple. The game then ends. So again, a lot more to unpack and look into here, but let's start with Chai. Some of you may recognise the name Chai. Chai was the occultist caster that Belle went to in order to put the lechery jinx upon Shane. But let's build a picture of who Chai is. In Chai's early life, he was an only child. His father was the village gravedigger and looked after the cemetery. This caused issues, and some of the other people in the village would talk about Chai and his father and kept their distance. The novice monk mentions at some point that his father knew Chai. Chai's father died at some point and Chai took over the family business, and the people in the village would continue to harass him. He became resentful and hated other human beings. Chai decided to take action. You see, the village feared the dead, so Chai would use that against the villagers. You ever wondered how Tim was able to travel to different places such as the university, his home, the forest and the dance school? He was travelling between locations in a place called the Hindrance. The Hindrance is a place where spirits linger somewhere between life, the mortal world, and death. The way it works is the way the novice monk puts it in the temple, that your anxieties and your attachments to the world are hindrances. What goes around comes around. Karma. I mentioned in the last video that karma is a big thing in Thai culture, and is actually a belief that people have around the world too. The Thai notion of karma tends to lean more towards generating good karma throughout your life through the observing of ancient rituals that Thai culture considers holy. One of these follows the 5 precepts of Buddhism, also known as the 5 precepts of training. The precepts themselves are commitments to abstain from murder, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying or falsehoods, and intoxication. Chai was aiming to gain power. He would do this by finding methods of raising the dead and using them as his own personal army, and to make himself more powerful. The final step in his plan was to use 5 sacrifices guilty of each one of the 5 precepts in order to open up a portal, to use soul energies as a means to achieve it. Now this had to line up with a lunar eclipse. In the first episode, Tim finds a newspaper which tells of a lunar eclipse happening soon. Chai needed 5 people who all died on the day of the eclipse. The first person had to have committed the act of, or at least the intention to murder. This precept was broken by Belle, who tried to murder Sherry through a jinx so that she could have Shane. The second person had committed the act of theft, and that was Tay, the motorcycle gang leader who robbed and beat his own mother, dying by being impaled through the eye. The third person had to break the precept of falsehoods or lying, which leads us on to Ratri. Ratri was a young woman who was known for her beauty and her talent as a dancer. She had an older sister, Tida. Their grandmother favoured Ratri as, due to her beauty, she thought that she would be the bigger success and go further in life. Their grandmother taught both of the girls how to dance. Both Ratri and Tida attended the same dance school growing up, and whilst growing up, Ratri became more and more vain due to her beauty. This brought about a sense of entitlement in her. She grew to be extremely manipulative and twisted situations in order to get her own way. Throughout his journey through the dance school, Tim gets to see visions of what Ratri and Tida's childhood was like. The reason behind Ratri's selfish and cruel behaviour was a direct result of how her grandmother nurtured her. During one of these visions, Ratri broke a doll that belonged to their father, and that was a valued possession. Ratri cried, and Tida comforted her sister and said that they could fix it before their grandmother noticed. But of course, their grandmother entered the room and saw Ratri sobbing, Tida holding the broken doll, and Tida got the blame for breaking the doll, and Ratri maintained her innocence. The grandmother hit Tida and made her sleep in the tin shed in the rain. Ratri never spoke up about it as she knew she was favoured, and she loved it. Ratri wouldn't get it all her own way though, as we will soon find out. Years later, now grown up, Ratri and Tida were sent to dance school, which was run by their mother. Ratri, again due to her beauty, attracted the eye of a man named Ming. The feelings weren't returned on Ratri's side, but she kept Ming around anyway. Due to her having such a high opinion of herself, she believed that she could use her beauty and talents to get her everything that she desired, and as a result she didn't dedicate that much time to perfecting her dancing. Tida, on the other hand, practiced like crazy. In the dance school, a big performance was coming up, and Ratri had her eye on the part of the heroine, and this heroine would wear the traditional Thai garments seen on the various mannequins in the school. The part went to a famous actress named Bua. Ratri's grandmother told her about spirits which would grant wishes in exchange for a promise. Ratri promised to do a naked dance if the spirit somehow removed Bua from the equation, therefore leaving the role open for her. Well, the spirit came through as Bua legged it to Bangkok with her husband. Ratri was delighted, and so was Simp of the Year Ming, who called Ratri his cutesy girl. This is how that conversation went.
The teacher is now looking for her replacement, and the event is getting closer.
Oh, really?
Yes!
I told you that he was the real deal.
Obviously. Just the blink of an eye, and it all came true. Now's your chance, Ratri. Who would be the better suitable heroine than my cutesy little girl?
Hold your horses. Who's your girl? A beautiful girl like me wouldn't even look at a guy with a face like yours. Ugh. Ew.
Fine then. Don't you even come crawling back to me.
Ratri then got exactly what she deserved, and it wasn't the part. That went to her older sister, Tida. She was incandescent with rage. She confronted the dance teacher, who told her that she should practice her dancing more like her sister, instead of looking at herself in the mirror and expecting her beauty to give her everything. Ratri's plotting didn't stop there. We're about to see why Ratri broke the precept which says that you shall not commit falsehoods. Using Ming, as he was still besotted with her, she had him steal gold treasures owned by the teacher's wife and then place them in Tida's room. She got him to do this by offering him something. Ratri then wrote a letter anonymously to the teacher's wife telling her that Tida was a thief, and the teacher's wife, along with two men, one of whom was Ming, chopped off Tida's arm with an axe. Tida then suffered blood loss and died. Later on, Ratri was sleeping in her room, but she was not aware that the spirit she made the promise to was lurking outside of her bedroom window. Ming walks in and demands whatever it is she promised to him as payment for framing Tida. Ratri flat out refuses and says that she was the one who came up with the plan, so he gets nothing. The spirit overhears this, and Ratri got what was coming to her. The spirit heard Ratri's reluctance to honour her promise to Ming, and therefore the forest spirit possessed Ratri and twisted her up, leading to her death in 1956, as seen here in this newspaper article. Ming then disappeared, being named as a prime suspect, despite there being no evidence of a fight. This led to Ratri becoming a vengeful spirit, and people said it was her spirit that would haunt the dance school. Tida's spirit was in the school too, at times helping Tim through the mannequins and herself, pointing him in the right direction, and showing him Jane's knife, in the hope that he would put an end to Ratri for good. Now we've covered 3 of the 5 precepts, murder, theft and falsehoods, and we have 2 remaining. It's time to look into where Jane and Tim factor in, and how they got dragged into Chai's plan. Throughout Jane's diary entries in the last episode, we found out that Jane and Tim, or rather Tim, bought them a house. Tim then got a promotion in his job and spent less time with Jane. Jane then began to get tormented by spirits and had some really strange dreams, sometimes even waking up with scratches on her. She told Tim about it, but he dismissed her concerns. Their marriage, still in its early stage, was failing fast. But Chai didn't just choose Jane at random. It all came down to a couple of things: their karma and their bed. It sounds ridiculous, but bear with me. When Tim is exploring the area outside the temple, he comes across this note under Chai's home. This story tells the tale of a woman who went to a mortician and asked for 3 to 4 nails that have been used to close coffins. The woman had recently divorced her husband and she still loved him, but he had remarried to a much younger woman. She went to see a shaman who told her to hammer the nails into the headboard of her ex-husband's bed. The idea was that the nails would effectively curse the bed and drove the couple apart. Seems like it worked, as the couple soon split up and the woman ended up back with her husband again. The harmony didn't last long though. They had a horrible fight and they ended up shooting each other. Turns out the woman hadn't removed the nails from the headboard. Rookie error. And the bed was eventually donated. Now take a look at this. Seems like Jane and Tim were in the market for a second-hand bed and came across this beauty, with nails and all. At the start of episode 2, we see Jane speaking on the phone with Dew, Tim's best friend. Dew seems very friendly towards Jane. So which precept did Jane break? It was the precept of sexual misconduct. Jane was having an affair and cheating on Tim with Dew. Very bad karma indeed. Tim turned to drink after Jane's disappearance, with his decline even leading to him being suspended from work. Tim therefore became the target for the 5th sacrifice, as he'd broken the 5th precept of intoxication. But with Tim defeating Chai, he'd obviously destroyed Chai's plan. In order to look into Chai's goal, we need to look into the Executioner. A long time ago, the Executioner was a loyal man when it came to serving his master, but one day he had a disagreement with his master. The master took it to the extreme though and ordered his assassins to kill the Executioner. This wouldn't be an easy task for the assassins though. The Executioner had covered his body in tattoos, which strangely made him pretty much immune to damage, but the one weak spot that he couldn't get tattooed were his eyes. The assassins realised this and poisoned him through his eyes, and this made him weak, allowing the assassins to finally kill him, and he was buried. Chai needed a bodyguard of sorts, so in 1995 he resurrected the remains of the Executioner, who would only act according to the will of his new master, who of course was Chai. As mentioned previously, even though the Executioner was resurrected, he was still blind, and his ears were very sensitive, forcing Tim to sneak around. We find a number of scriptures which detail the way to open the gate of hell. The third one in particular states that the body needed to hold all the souls, without the body disintegrating, needed to be surrounded by death all of its life. The Executioner wouldn't just be a bodyguard for Chai, he would be the vessel for Chai to achieve his plan and receive great power. But what great power? Well, the first scripture detailing how to open the gate of hell talks of a spell called Soul Eternity, a spell which will elevate the caster even above the Wheel of Karma. Chai, in order to complete this spell, needed to seize the souls of 5 sinners, which were the souls of Belle, Tay, Ratri, Jane and Tim. Chai needed to power the portal, or the Gate of Hell, by using, according to Scripture 2, 100 spirits as a power source. As mentioned before, the 5 sinners had to be killed on the day of the eclipse so that their souls can absorb the power. Finally, going back to the Hindrance, Tim, at various points, comes across eviscerated animal carcasses. A radio report near one of the carcasses says this.
Villagers reporting hear livestock screaming during the night and find the bodies of the slain animals in the morning. Clear laundry hung out to dry overnight appears in the morning to be filthy and covered in blood stains. Mysterious lights roam the distant darkness as if it were alive. The people of the town are terrified and lock themselves in their house as soon as the sun sets. Some of the villagers have even assembled crude fences made from the branches of a monkey apple tree, believing a superstition that such a fence around their home will protect them from the something that is behind these mysterious occurrences.
This is the work of an entity called the Krasue. According to Thai culture, the Krasue was once a beautiful woman who was burned to death and is cursed to be hungry for eternity. The Krasue lives as a normal person by day, but the head detaches itself from the body, entrails dangling from it, and searches out a pregnant lady to feast on. If the Krasue can't find a pregnant lady, it will settle on eating feces or animals. The radio report mentioned laundry covered in blood. This is because the Krasue will wipe its bloody mouth on the laundry. Due to this, it's common for people of Thai culture to refrain from leaving laundry hanging outside overnight. As for where the Krasue came from, well, in the house in the forest, Ratri's grandmother's home, we can find a burned body in one of the rooms, which previously was roped shut. This is possibly the grandmother's body. Remember how much she loved Ratri? Well, after the death of Ratri, it's possible that the grandmother set herself on fire. It's just a theory, but it's a plausible one. It's even more plausible when you consider that the radio report mentions the bloody laundry started appearing in 1959, 3 years after Ratri's death. But that is pretty much it for this video, and that concludes the story for Home Sweet Home. If you enjoyed this story breakdown, then please leave a like as it helps this video hit the algorithm, and leave a comment with your thoughts down below. Subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you in the next one.